Be me, Jonah, senior developer at a large, personality-free tech giant. I've clocked enough years here to know every hallway and every recurring bug. The salary's comfortable, the problems are just complex enough to stay interesting, and nobody micromanages me. Ideal arrangement for someone who prefers syntax over small talk, ship features, get paid, retreat to a quiet apartment, and a glowing screen. Our team maintains heavyweight enterprise systems, the invisible backbone of companies you've actually heard of, wrapped in interfaces that feel frozen in time. For the longest stretch, everything ran on routine. Then leadership decided routine was the enemy. Company-wide meeting announced, attendance non-negotiable, MFWE. I have to pause a critical bug fix to go listen to some corporate speech. The whole department is crammed into the main conference room. The air is thick with the smell of stale coffee and quiet desperation. The director, a guy who usually looks like he's 2 seconds away from a nap, is up front looking unusually nervous. He clears his throat and starts talking about the future of our product line and fostering innovation. Standard stuff. Most of us are already mentally checked out. He announces a new initiative, 2 competing internal projects to build the next generation version of our flagship product. 2 teams, same goal, same deadline. The winning design gets the full budget and becomes the company's main focus for the next 5 years. A little friendly competition? Okay, I can live with that. Might even be interesting. Then he says, to lead this new chapter, we need fresh perspectives. He gestures to the side. A woman I vaguely recognize from another department walks up to the podium. This is Talia. Talia has been at the company for maybe a year. Never seen her write a line of code. Mostly see her in emails organizing women in tech luncheons. She's got that look. The one that says she's read a lot of articles but has never actually done the things she's talking about. She taps the microphone, smiles a smile that doesn't reach her eyes, and begins. Thank you, she says, her voice dripping with corporate-approved confidence. She launches into a 10-minute speech about the systemic issues in the tech world, uses all the buzzwords, patriarchy, unconscious bias, emotional labor, toxic masculinity. My brain starts to feel like a bingo card, and I'm hitting every square. She claims that the current way we develop software is inherently flawed because it's built on a foundation of aggressive, male-dominated logic. A dash few, dash people dash, in, dash, the dash, room, dash, start, dash, nodding, dot, gif. The HR rep, a woman who looks like her entire personality is a LinkedIn profile, is nodding so hard I think her head might fall off. Talia then drops the bomb. She proposes an experimental paradigm shift. She wants to lead one of the 2 project teams, but with a condition. Her team will be composed entirely of women. We need to create a safe space, she says, where female creativity can flourish, free from the interruptions of mansplaining and the pressures of a patriarchal work structure. The room goes dead silent. You could hear a pin drop. I look around. All the other male devs have the same expression, a mixture of, you can't be serious, and please don't let me get called on. We all know that saying anything, even asking a logical question, would be career suicide. You'd be branded as a misogynist before you even finished your sentence. The director looks like a hostage. He's sweating under the conference room lights. He glances at the HR rep, who gives him an ecstatic thumbs up. He's cornered. He knows it. We know it. That's a very bold and progressive idea, Talia, he stammers. The board is very committed to our DEI goals. We'll support this. A smattering of polite, forced applause breaks out, mostly from HR and Talia's little clique. The injustice of it all hits me. This isn't about skill, it's about ideology. My face when a multi-million-dollar project is being turned into a social experiment. The meeting continues. It's announced that Talia will get to pick her team first. Of course she does. A list of all available developers is projected onto the screen. Talia stands there like a kid in a candy store, pointing out names. It's not the most skilled developers she's picking. I notice she skips over a couple of the best female coders in the company, women who are known for being no-nonsense and brutally efficient. No, she picks the ones who were nodding during her speech, the ones who are active in the same corporate social clubs as her. It's a team based on allegiance, not ability. After she's picked her all-star roster of about 10 women, the director turns to the rest of us, the leftovers. The second team will be formed from our remaining developers, he says, trying to sound enthusiastic. He puts Aaron's name on the screen as the team lead. A wave of relief washes over me. Aaron is a legend in the company, a quiet, middle-aged guy who has been here forever. He's a man of few words and a lot of action. He doesn't care about politics. He only cares about clean code and meeting deadlines. He's fair, he's brilliant, and he doesn't suffer fools. The rest of us are assigned to his team. It's a mix of guys like me and the few skilled women Talia didn't want. We're officially Team B, the rejects, the control group in Talia's grand experiment. We're even assigned the old office space in the less renovated wing of the building, while Talia's team gets the brand new, open-plan space with the fancy coffee machine. The battle lines are drawn, and we haven't even written a single line of code. The next week, the projects officially kick off. The difference between the two teams is apparent from day one. We walk into our office. It's functional. Gray cubicles, standard-issue chairs. Aaron calls us into the small meeting room. No coffee, no donuts. Just a giant whiteboard. He stands there for a minute, looking at it in silence. Then he picks up a marker and starts drawing. For the next hour, he outlines the entire architecture of the system. The database schema, the API endpoints, the front-end framework, everything. It's a masterclass in software design, clear, elegant, and efficient. He finishes, puts the cap back on the marker, and turns to us. This is the plan, he says. I've broken it down into modules. I'll assign you each a section. Any questions? A few people ask smart, technical questions. He answers them precisely. Good, he says. Let's get to work. That was it. That was our entire kickoff meeting. No talk about feelings or team synergy. Just a clear goal and a clear path to get there. Meanwhile, from the office next door, we can hear the sounds of a party. Laughter, music, clapping. Later, I have to walk past their office to get to the restroom. I peek inside. They've completely redecorated. There are fairy lights, motivational posters with slogans like "Smash the Patriarchy" and a giant beanbag chair in the corner. They're not at their desks. They're all gathered around a whiteboard, but it's not covered in system architecture. It's covered in colorful sticky notes with words like empowerment, collaboration, and validation. Talia is leading what looks like a workshop on defining our team manifesto. They spent the entire first day not on the project, but on branding themselves. They even had a vote on a team name. They called themselves the Amazons. We quickly started calling ourselves the Scrappers. It seemed fitting. The first few weeks set the tone for the entire project. Our team fell into a rhythm. We'd have a 10-minute stand-up meeting with Aaron every morning, quick status update, identify any roadblocks. Then, heads down coding for the rest of the day. The office was quiet, save for the click of keyboards. If you had a problem, you'd walk over to someone's desk, ask your question, get an answer, and go back to work. The women on our team were just part of the team. They were brilliant developers, and their opinions were respected because they were good at their jobs. Nobody cared about anything else. It was a true meritocracy. It was peaceful. The Amazon's office, on the other hand, was a constant source of noise and drama. We'd hear them having long, loud sharing circles that seemed to devolve into arguments. Their corporate Slack channel, which was public to the whole company, was a trip. It was maybe 10% project-related discussion, and even that was vague and non-technical. The other 90% was a flood of articles about feminist theory, complaints about the office air conditioning being sexist, and pictures of the artisanal cupcakes they were having for their weekly wins celebration. They celebrated everything. First line of code written celebration. We finally agreed on a font celebration. It was baffling. They were acting like they were running a student club, not a multi-million-dollar project. Talia's leadership style started to show its cracks. We'd overhear things through the thin office walls. She was a micromanager, but not about the code. She was micromanaging the team's emotions. She'd pull people into one-on-ones to discuss their tone in a meeting. She vetoed a perfectly good database technology because, and I quote, the creator had problematic tweets from 10 years ago. They lost a week arguing about what to use instead. The internal politics were apparently brutal. Cliques had formed. There was a power struggle between Talia and another senior woman on the team who actually had technical experience. The experienced one wanted to make concrete technical decisions. Talia accused her of internalized misogyny and replicating patriarchal management styles. That dash escalated quickly .jpg. It was a slow-motion train wreck, and we had front-row seats. Our team just kept our heads down. We were making incredible progress. Aaron was a shield. He handled all the management reporting and deflected any corporate nonsense that came our way. He let us just focus on the work. One time, the HR rep sent out a company-wide email praising the Amazons for their brave and innovative approach to team building. The email included a photo of them from their team vision boarding session. Aaron saw the email, read it, and just deleted it without comment. He didn't forward it to us. He didn't mention it. It was just noise to him. His only concern was our progress bar on the project tracker, and that bar was way ahead of schedule. About a month and a half in, the cracks in the Amazon's facade started to become visible to the rest of the company. Their progress tracker was basically a flat line. They were missing minor deadlines left and right. Talia's excuse in the weekly project reports was always the same. They were in the ideation and discovery phase, a much more holistic approach than our rigid linear one. She was a master of corporate doublespeak. She could talk for 30 minutes without saying anything concrete. We started getting weird requests from them. One of their junior members came over to my desk one afternoon. She looked exhausted. She asked if I could help her with a database connection issue she'd been stuck on for 2 days. Apparently, asking for help within their team was seen as a sign of weakness. Talia had fostered an environment where everyone had to pretend they knew everything, lest they be seen as not good enough. I felt bad for her. I spent 20 minutes walking her through the problem. It was a simple configuration error. She was so grateful it was almost sad. "Thank you," she whispered. "Please don't tell Talia I asked you." This started happening more and more. Members of their team would quietly seek us out for technical help, like we were some kind of black market for actual software development. We never said no. We weren't trying to sabotage them. We just wanted to do our jobs, and helping someone with a technical problem is part of that. Aaron knew it was happening. He never said anything, but he knew. One day, he just left a box of donuts on the table in the break room with a note that said, "For the scrappers, keep up the good work." It was the most emotional I'd ever seen him get. The situation with the Amazons got worse. Their internal arguments became louder. We heard a full-on shouting match one afternoon. It was about whether to use tabs or spaces for indentation. A classic pointless developer argument. But for them, it wasn't about technical standards. It became ideological. One side claimed tabs were hierarchical and rigid, while the other side, I don't even know. The argument lasted for hours. It ended with one of the women storming out of their office in tears. Our team just put on our headphones and turned up the music. MFW, you can hear a project imploding in real time through the wall. The most ironic part was their public image. On the company's internal network, Talia was still posting cheerful updates, pictures of the team doing yoga in a conference room, finding our zen to unlock our creative flow, #WomenInTech, #GirlPower. It was a complete fiction, a carefully curated performance of productivity that had no basis in reality. Meanwhile, our team had finished the entire back end of our application. We were starting on the user interface. We had a working, testable, and robust piece of software. It wasn't pretty yet, but it was real. They had a vision board and a Slack channel full of drama. The mid-project deadline was looming. In about 6 weeks, both teams were scheduled to present a working prototype to the entire executive board, including the director. The pressure was mounting, and we could feel the desperation coming from the office next door. Talia started lashing out. She began sending passive-aggressive emails to Aaron. She complained that our team's loud typing was disrupting their collaborative atmosphere. She accused one of our junior devs of hogging the bandwidth when he was running a large data import. Aaron's response to every email was a single beautiful sentence. Noted. He was a gray rock. He gave her nothing to work with. He refused to get drawn into her drama. It was a thing of beauty. As the presentation day got closer, the mood in our office was calm and focused. We were running tests, fixing bugs, and polishing the UI. We were proud of what we'd built, The mood next door was frantic. They were pulling all-nighters, but not the productive kind. It was the kind fueled by panic and poor planning. We'd come in the morning and find their whiteboard covered in frantic half-erased diagrams. Their office would be littered with empty coffee cups and energy drink cans. The safe space had become a pressure cooker. One of the women from their team who I'd helped before caught me in the kitchen. She looked like she hadn't slept in a week. "We're so far behind," she said, her voice low. "The whole thing is a mess. Nothing connects. Talia keeps changing the requirements based on her mood." She looked at me, and her expression was just defeated. "You guys seem to have it all figured out," she said. I just shrugged. "We have a good plan and a good boss." It was the simple truth. We had competence and leadership. They had ideology and chaos. The stage was set for a massive collision with reality, and presentation day was just around the corner. The final weeks leading up to the prototype presentation were a study in contrasts. Our office, the land of the scrappers, was a hive of quiet, focused activity. The mood was serious but not stressed. It was the calm of a team that knows they're prepared. We were in the polishing phase. Aaron had us doing peer code reviews, optimizing queries, and running every conceivable stress test. His mantra was simple: "I don't want it to work. I want it to be impossible for it to fail." We were building a fortress of code. We even had time for what developers call gold plating, adding small, non-essential features that improve the user experience. One of our front-end guys, on his own initiative, built a sleek dark mode for the UI. It wasn't in the requirements, but it looked awesome. Aaron saw it, nodded once, and said, "Good. Keep it." That was high praise coming from him. It meant you'd not only met his expectations, but exceeded them. That's what our team ran on. The quiet satisfaction of doing good work and earning the respect of a leader who actually knew what he was talking about. The atmosphere next door was the complete opposite. The Amazon's office had transitioned from a yoga retreat vibe to a full-blown crisis center. The laughter and music were gone, replaced by a constant humming tension that you could feel through the walls. They were in a state of perpetual panic. We'd hear Talia's voice, sharp and strained, barking orders. The collaborative, empowering language was gone. Now it was just raw frustration. They were trying to cram 6 months of work into 6 weeks, and it was breaking them. Their attempts to get help from us became more bold, more desperate. It wasn't just quiet whispers in the kitchen anymore. They'd email our team's general inbox with urgent technical questions. Aaron had a policy for this. We were to answer politely, but briefly, and only point them to the official documentation. No more one-on-one help. "We have our own deadline," was all he said. It was fair. We weren't responsible for their project. Talia must have interpreted this as an act of war. She escalated, she went to HR. We all got called into a surprise meeting, our team, Talia, and the HR rep. Aaron looked unimpressed. Talia came in hot. She delivered a prepared speech about our team's unwillingness to collaborate and our gatekeeping of knowledge. She claimed we were creating a hostile environment by not providing her team with the support they needed. She was trying to frame their incompetence as our fault, a classic blame shift. My _face_ when not doing their work, for them, is hostile .png. The HR rep looked at us with a disappointed expression, like we were a bunch of kindergartners who refused to share our toys. "We need to be one team here," the rep said, oozing with false sincerity. Aaron let her finish. He waited a beat. The silence was heavy. Then he spoke, his voice calm and level. He told them that his team's priority was their own project deadline, as mandated by the director. He explained that his team had been nothing but professional, and that any help they offered was a courtesy, not an obligation. Then he delivered the kill shot. "If Talia's team is having trouble accessing publicly available technical documentation," he said, looking directly at the HR rep, "then perhaps the issue isn't a lack of collaboration, but a skills gap that should have been addressed during team formation." Oof. The HR rep's smile vanished. Talia's face went white with rage. He had turned her accusation of a hostile environment into a question of her team's basic competence, and he did it without raising his voice. The meeting ended very quickly after that. Nothing came of it. HR never bothered us again. But Talia was furious. We could hear her yelling in her office for the better part of an hour. After that incident, they went dark. A wall of silence. The week before the presentation, we submitted our code for final review. We were done. Our prototype was locked and loaded. Aaron gave us the last 2 days off from the project. Work on your regular tasks, he said. Clear your heads. You've earned it. Meanwhile, the Amazons were living at the office. We'd see them in the morning, wearing the same clothes as the day before, huddled around a table littered with takeout containers. They looked like the survivors of a shipwreck. The night before the big day, I had to stay late to finish up a different task. As I was walking out, I saw Talia through her office window. She was alone, staring at a screen of code, her face illuminated by the glow. She had a look of pure, undiluted panic. The mask was off. The confident feminist visionary was gone. All that was left was someone who was completely, utterly out of her depth, and she knew it. The day of the presentation arrived. The big executive boardroom was reserved for the entire morning. It was the fanciest room in the building, with a huge oak table and a projector screen the size of a car. All the C-suite people were there. The director, the CFO, the head of technology. It was the corporate equivalent of Mount Olympus. Our team filed in and took seats on one side of the room. We were all dressed a little nicer than usual. We were nervous, but it was the good kind of nerves. The kind you get before a championship game you know you're ready for. Then, the Amazons came in. They sat on the other side. The air crackled with tension. They looked awful, pale, sleep-deprived. Talia was trying to project an aura of confidence, but she was fidgeting with her pen, a small tell that she was about to explode. The director called the meeting to order. As you know, he began, today we'll see the prototypes for the next generation of our platform. This is a critical milestone. Let's start with Talia's team. Talia walked to the front of the room. She had a PowerPoint presentation ready to go. She started her presentation, but she wasn't talking about the project. For the first 15 minutes, she talked about her team's journey. She talked about creating a holistic, nurturing ecosystem. She showed slides with inspirational quotes and photos of her team doing trust falls. She used the word synergy at least a dozen times. The executives were shifting in their seats. The CFO was openly checking his watch. I glanced at Aaron. He was staring straight ahead, his face a perfect mask of neutrality. Finally, the director cleared his throat. Talia, this is all very interesting. Can we see the software, please? A dash moment dash of dash truth. .wav. Talia's smile tightened. Of course, she said. We're just so proud of the process, which we believe is just as important as the product. She fumbled with her laptop for a moment. One of her team members had to come up and help her connect it to the projector. Not a good start. The login screen for their application appeared on the giant screen. The design was colorful. Lots of pastel shades and a very curvy font. This is our user-centric login portal, Talia announced proudly. She typed in a username and password and hit enter. A loading spinner appeared, and it just kept spinning, and spinning. After a solid 30 seconds of awkward silence, she laughed nervously. The demo environment can be a little slow sometimes, she said, wiggling the mouse. The screen suddenly flickered and then displayed a long, ugly error message. Something about a fatal database connection failure. The room was silent. Just a minor hiccup, Talia said, her voice a little too high. Let me just restart the server. She started frantically typing commands into a terminal window. The executives were now leaning forward, their expressions turning from bored to concerned. She got the application running again. Okay, let's try a different feature, she said, trying to regain control. Here is our dynamic dashboard. She clicked on a navigation link. A new page loaded, but it was a mess. Half the components were missing. There were broken image icons everywhere. A chart in the middle of the page just said, data rendering error. It looked like a website from the AngelFire era. One of the VPs, the head of technology, spoke up. What data is that chart supposed to be showing? Talia froze. It's a dynamic visualization of user engagement metrics, she stammered. Can you show us how to add a new user to the system? He asked. A basic fundamental function. Talia navigated to the Add User form. She typed in some test data and clicked the Submit button. Nothing happened. She clicked it again and again. The button did absolutely nothing. The head of tech leaned back in his chair and crossed his arms. He didn't have to say a word. His expression said it all. This was a complete, unmitigated disaster. Talia's composure finally broke. The corporate mask shattered and raw panic took over. She started making excuses. It wasn't a slow, calculated blame shift this time. It was a rapid-fire torrent of desperation. The staging server isn't configured correctly. We didn't get enough support from the infrastructure team. The requirements were unclear. Then she made her final, fatal mistake. She looked across the table, directly at our team. And frankly, she said, her voice shaking with rage, it's been very difficult to innovate in an environment that is so culturally resistant to change and still champions a very exclusionary, male-centric way of thinking. She had just accused the entire room, including the executives, of being the reason for her failure. The director's face, which had been passive until now, hardened into granite. He had given her this opportunity, defended her to the board, and she was now throwing it back in his face. "Thank you, Talia," he said, his voice ice cold. "That's enough. Aaron, you're up." The contrast was almost comical. Aaron walked to the podium. He didn't even bring a laptop. He just pulled a USB stick from his pocket and handed it to me. "Jonah will drive," he said. I plugged it into the main presentation computer. No fumbling. It connected instantly. Our application's login screen appeared. It was clean, professional, and minimalist. No curvy fonts. Aaron's entire presentation lasted about 30 seconds. "We were tasked with building a prototype for the new platform," he said, addressing the room. "Here it is." He nodded at me. I logged in. The response was instantaneous. A complex, data-rich dashboard loaded in less than a second. All the charts worked. The data was live. "The dashboard is fully customizable," I said, as I started dragging and dropping widgets, rearranging the layout on the fly. The executives murmured in appreciation. I spent the next 10 minutes walking them through the application. I created a new user. It worked. I ran a complex report. It generated a PDF in seconds. I demonstrated the robust search functionality. It was lightning fast. Then, for the finale, I clicked the little moon icon in the corner. The entire interface smoothly transitioned into the dark mode our developer had built. A couple of the executives literally said, "Whoa." We had shown them a stable, feature-complete, and polished piece of software. It wasn't a prototype. It was practically a finished product. When I was done, Aaron stepped forward again. "Any questions?" The head of technology grilled us for 10 minutes. He asked about scalability, security, database, indexing. Aaron handled some of the high-level architecture questions. I answered the detailed implementation ones. We answered everything perfectly. We knew our system inside and out. When he was done asking questions, the head of tech just nodded slowly and said, "Very impressive. This is excellent work." The director looked around the room. "Any other questions?" Silence. Talia and her team were staring at the screen, their faces a mixture of disbelief and despair. "Have everything we need. This meeting is have everything we need. This meeting is over. Aaron, Talia, a word in my office? Now." The rest of us filed out of the room. The moment we were in the hallway, our team let out a collective, quiet sigh of relief. No one celebrated. No one gloated. We just exchanged small, tired smiles. We knew we had won. The fallout was swift and brutal. Aaron came back from the director's office about an hour later. He gathered us in our little meeting room. "Talia's project has been canceled, effective immediately," he announced. "Their team is being disbanded," he continued. "We've been given the full budget and resources from both projects. Our prototype has been approved for full production. The timeline is aggressive, but the director has authorized a significant project completion bonus for every member of this team if we hit our targets." A quiet cheer went through our team. All our hard work had paid off. Over the next few days, the full extent of the reorganization became clear. Two of the most talented developers from Talia's former team, the ones who had secretly asked us for help, came to Iran and asked if there were any open spots on our team. Aaron hired them on the spot. I talked to one of them later. She looked so relieved. "I am so glad to be here," she said. "I just want to write code and build good things. I was so tired of all the meetings about feelings." It was a validation of everything we believed, competence over ideology. And what of Talia? She wasn't fired. In a large corporation, you can't fire someone like that without risking a lawsuit. So they did something much more humiliating. They promoted her. They gave her a new, important-sounding title, Director of Synergistic People Operations. It was a completely fabricated role in the HR department. She was given a tiny office in a forgotten corner of the building. She had no staff, no budget, and no real responsibilities. Her job was, essentially, to stay out of the way. It was a corporate prison. She lasted about a month. One day, we all saw her being escorted out of the building by security, carrying a cardboard box with her personal belongings. Later that night, she posted a long, rambling tirade on LinkedIn about the toxic patriarchal culture at our company and how she had been pushed out for being a strong, visionary woman. The post got a few hundred likes from her online echo chamber. Nobody at the company who knew the real story even reacted. She was already a ghost. That night, our newly expanded team went out to a local bar to celebrate. Aaron even showed up for one beer, which for him was the equivalent of doing a keg stand. He raised his glass. "To the scrappers," he said. We all raised our glasses. "To the scrappers." There was no gloating. There was no trash talk about Talia or her failed experiment. There was just a quiet, profound sense of satisfaction. We had faced a challenge that was both technical and political. We had ignored the noise, focused on the work, and delivered. We had won not by playing their game, but by being better at ours. Reality had asserted itself. Merit had, for once, actually mattered. And that was the best victory of all.